the value of human beings and humanity is more of a question than ever today in 2026. And I think that something that's being overlooked is that all of our understanding of value is in subjective relation, meaning that it can change and depending on what it is able to accomplish. So the meaning I'm trying to get with that is money only has value in relation to its ability to dictate action. So if people aren't willing to work for money, then that money no longer has any value or any meaning. These things are a social consensus that we all together have a collective input and responsibility and participation in. So the perceived value of something is very much dependent on the perception of the viewer. So I think that basically these AI companies that implement AI as a way to replace their workforce are digging their own grave in a really prophetic and beautiful way, because everything we've seen come out of Silicon Valley, with pretty much zero exception, is, that idea of like the in-shitification of things. It's they bleed as much money as possible, unbelievable amounts of money, with no interest in profit. Before they can even think about profit, they need to destroy all of the competition. And then once they destroy all of the competition by giving out everything for free, that's when they're in the position and have the leverage to completely abuse that relationship they have with the consumer. And it has zero correlation to capitalism and is basically some form of techno-socialism, techno-communism that is disguised as capitalism, ignoring the fact that everyone on earth right now is betting on AI to be the future, but AI doesn't make any money right now. OpenAI doesn't make any money. So why would we believe Silicon Valley that once we fire everybody, only then are they going to, start becoming a free service that everyone has access to and no one needs to worry about money ever again? That doesn't make any sense. But when Elon's talking about, like, you don't even need to save money because money is going to be meaningless in the future, I think that's a very telling, it's very telling of the mindset behind a lot of these tech companies and their misunderstanding of the fundamental natures of reality. The fundamental natures of reality, meaning these companies only have power in relation to this socialized system. Their money, even if it's $1 trillion, at any given moment can become worthless if that social system no longer sees the validity in that specific currency. Then they have the ability to find new means of exchange and new methods of interacting with each other to exchange their labor, their products, their information, and their services to assist in a better ability to live life. So once these companies fire everybody, then the tech companies are going to start increasing their price more and more and more and more. And the more that these tech companies increase the price of their service, the more that they're going to sell the idea that, well, it doesn't matter if you're not making enough money to pay for this, because once you pay for it, it'll tell you how to pay for it. But if that was really true, then what you would see these companies do is privatize their service and then just offer the market things that are extremely competitive and in a market capitalistic way knock out all the competition. Instead, they're trying to infiltrate the competition, convince them to fire everybody, and do so by bleeding money behind the scenes and selling the lie that the systems that they're using are going to be free just for a temporary time period, so that once these companies deal with that firing, that mass firing, then they can pounce, you know. And why do I believe this? Why should we believe this? Because that's what has happened with every single company that's come out of Silicon Valley, with almost zero exception. And it's really the startup model in general. The reason Y Combinator, which is like the startup kind of, it's like the NFL draft of stealing money from people. The Y Combinator will give the best ideas a bunch of money to infiltrate their market and knock out all the competition. And then once they do that, they owe the investors who put them in that position a bunch of money. So the responsibility isn't to the consumer. The responsibility isn't to the person they're selling their product to. The responsibility is to the investors. So I believe that in doing this, it's going to provide a lot of opportunity to restructure companies around human beings, where we really maximize their individual value to the mission and utilize the open source aspects of AI, the things that we actually can use for free, to take away the power and the relative perceived value of these trillion-dollar AI companies, which are showing us zero signs of working towards a better future, and are basically openly admitting that they would like to live in a world where humans don't have any sort of control over our existence, and our existence is a mathematical calculation, which is the result of inputting all of the documented information in human history into an algorithm and spitting out a answer that seems like almost like the lowest common denominator of truth, you know, because it's citing all of its sources, it's checking all of its different research, it's weighing out different opinions, but, you know, naturally that kind of makes it unlikely for AI to reach conclusions that aren't mid or stuck in the middle. You know, like a funny thing is, I put some of my transcripts after I film these, and then I ask AI to review it, and one of them's like, this is terrible because it doesn't cite any of his sources. And the tragedy is that all of the things he's saying are actually really brilliant and have been talked about by people in the past. So it's like, he should just read all of these books. And it's like, wait, so you're telling me that I'm standing in the middle of the woods communicating extremely complex ideas that we used to need 300 pages to communicate, but now I can communicate it in 5-10 minutes, and for some reason that's negative, you know, because it values that database of previous information in a way where it's looking for the lowest common denominator. Lowest common denominator, meaning that there could be objections, and it's not going to necessarily be able to value judge whether that is a valid objection. It's just going to factor into that overall calculation. So the ability to decipher information is very subjective, and our subjective calculator on deciphering information is how it relates to our lived experience and benefits our daily lives. These algorithms, these supercomputers don't have an incentive structure to get things right. It only has an incentive structure to please the programmer. And the programmer's interest and the programmer's desire is limited by the capacity of their individual mind, because it's impossible to predict financial markets. It's impossible to accurately predict the future. And the more you think about the future, the more compounding incorrect assumptions there will be. And as those incorrect assumptions compound, we will see entire frameworks being invested in that will be stifled by a misunderstanding of proper development. You know, another way of looking at this is like the human labor force, the human workforce has spent, a million years developing into what it is. People are carrying on skills and understandings and traditions that are passed down generation to generation to generation. And these algorithms, these new systems that are supposed to do our jobs are, not experiencing time in that same way. So just because you can read all of this library at once, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have the ability to process and delineate how those inputs relate to an effective output. So it's very easy for us to write about why all of these different things are wrong, why all of these different things are evil, why all these different things are incorrect. But that writing is an abstraction. It's a linguistic representation of how that thing affects our lived experience. But that lived experience, once again, is not language. It's all this, So the lack of ability for AI to accurately generate emotional connection, emotional resonance, it seems to me to be pretty obvious. I am looking forward to seeing these AI movies. People talk about these full AI films because the eyes are the window to the soul. AI generated people do not have a soul, and you can see it, you can feel it, you can experience it. And that's where things are going to come into our awareness that were very much previously overlooked or edited out. We only understand the things that we have quantitatively captured, meaning we have a bunch of numbers and language around it. We are very quick to overlook the spiritual and emotional elements of how we have manifested into what we are. And a lot of these tech companies are nerds. They're people who are autistic, therefore socially inept. So they're very likely to see the world in a cynical and negative way. And that cynicism and negativity isn't going to manifest into them oppressing all of us. It's going to manifest in a lack of resonance with us. And the power of the people is evident. It may seem difficult right now. It may seem like everything is controlled and manipulated and blah, 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 blah. But it's almost like the system needed to break in order for us to start building a new one. And I firmly believe that whatever these Altman and Musk and whoever else is saying really seems like Sam and Elon, and everyone else is kind of has a worse understanding of the thing they're doing, because Sam and Elon are more honest with the fact that they're trying to replace human beings and find a digital form of labor. So that is what they're doing. And I just think that it's going to fail. And it's also, that's where we need to have an awareness. We need to wake up. You can buy an AI robot to clean your house for $30,000, or you could just pay someone, hourly rate to clean your house. And if you add it up over time, maybe the robot would hypothetically save you money after 10 years. $30,000 is a lot of money to clean your house. But after enough years, you could say it saves you money. But the thing is if you get damage to that robot, it's going to need money to fix it. If that robot gets confused, it doesn't necessarily have the intuition to figure things out. So if you have a cleaning staff, not only are they lower maintenance, more reliable, self-healing, and capable of being intuitive, they also are something we can feel good about, something where we can feel the community in what we're doing, understand that giving them money helps their kids, which helps the world be a better place, as opposed to not giving them that money. If enough people are giving the money to the robot, then that cleaning staff company might have to, go bankrupt. And then their kid doesn't necessarily have enough money to live a good life. So now he's going to be forced to a life of crime or, extremely demeaning jobs and not have the access to use that currency to gain information and knowledge and skills and ability to then put that back into the market and pass down those understandings human to human, as the progression of time goes on. And all of these AI humanoid robots, the reason that they're supposed to look like humans is because we've already built the world around humans. Doors are made for humans. Handles are made for the human hand, Like, the ability to navigate this world is so much about being a human being and responding to other built forms and systems of human beings. When you take the physical experience of human life out of the equation, it may on paper, within these systems, be able to make infinite amount of sense and be able to completely outcompete a human. But when you take it outside of these systems into the real, actual, non-hypothetical reality, the physical domain, it is not physically capable of dealing. Like, we're like Wolverine and X-Men. When we get a cut, we just naturally heal. If one of these humanoid robots gets a cut or gets some sort of damage, it does not naturally heal. And in that same kind of idea, when we're incorrect, when our prompt outputs are incorrect, like, our brain has to learn from that because of the relationship it has, the way that it affects our lived experience. When these AI models are correct or incorrect, it doesn't really have any sort of impact. It doesn't have any sort of consequence or incentive for it to be right. I wanted this to be concise and short, so yeah, that's it. Let me know what you think. Let me know if that makes any sense. I am excited for the downfall of these companies and the opportunity to bring back the soul